Go inside one of the largest hotel empires on Earth. Outsmart the system before you check in.
What's the best time to get the best rate? I want the secret.
Hotel Behind Closed Doors at Marriott. Premieres CNBC December 12th.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wall Street Journal Report. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Tick-tock, the clock is running out on the fiscal cliff. I'll talk to the former cabinet secretary who says going over the fiscal cliff is better than getting a bad deal. The auto industry is back. What it's doing right, even in a soft economy. We'll find out what's driving profitability. And then curtains up on the billion-dollar woman who made the lion roar. My conversation with director Julie Taymor.
It's made upward of $6 billion, so no one ever really complained about it.
The Wall Street Journal Report begins right now.
This is America's #1 financial news program, The Wall Street Journal Report. Now, Maria Bartiromo.
Here's a look at what's making news as we head into a new week on Wall Street. Some surprisingly good news about America's economy. The Labor Department says 146,000 new jobs were created in the month of November, much better than economists' expectations. The unemployment rate dropped 0.2%, now at 7.7%. That's the best number since December of '08. The Labor Department also says that Superstorm Sandy had little effect on those numbers. Well, the markets continued their now familiar pattern of following the latest word or words or hopes on the fiscal cliff. No major moves during the week, but several times the market ran out of steam toward the end of the trading session. As for the fiscal cliff, the House of Representatives left for a long weekend on Wednesday. So while there may be some behind-the-scenes action in terms of talks, no one from the House is home. Big moves by Citigroup's new chairman and CEO, Michael Corbat. He announced 11,000 layoffs this week. Citi, as a result, will take a pre-tax charge of more than $1 billion. The markets actually liked the move. The stock rallied about 7% on the expense cuts. A big deal for Netflix and Disney. Meanwhile, the companies announced a licensing agreement that will give Netflix the right to show Disney movies shortly after they leave the theaters. So much to talk about this week, the fiscal cliff, the jobs numbers, the state of the economy. Who better to talk about all of that than Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor in the Clinton administration and current economics professor at the University of California at Berkeley. Good to see you, Robert Reich. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
So let's talk about these numbers. On Friday, the surprisingly strong jobs numbers, 146,000 new jobs created, the unemployment rate dropping to 7.7%. We were expecting some impact from the Superstorm Sandy and earlier Thanksgiving. What do these numbers say about the economy, Robert?
Well, apparently we are still struggling. I mean, these are not hugely wonderful numbers. I don't think anybody should breathe a great sigh of relief, Maria, but undoubtedly we're moving in the right direction. That early Thanksgiving may have canceled out any negative effects of Sandy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says Sandy really did not have much of an effect in November.
Interesting. Do you think we'll see revisions next month?
We probably will. I mean, every month we're seeing revisions, and the revisions so far have been downward. I mean, the revisions that we saw Friday for October and for September were both downward slightly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some downward revisions coming up.
Of course, the other big story that we're talking so much about is the fiscal cliff. Can you help us read the tea leaves here? Now, this week we heard from Timothy Geithner, the Treasury Secretary. Steve Leisman, the reporter at CNBC, asked him, if you don't get higher tax rates on the rich and the Republicans come up with that revenue from doing away with loopholes, exemptions, are you prepared to go over the fiscal cliff? He said, absolutely. We're prepared to go over the fiscal cliff. I thought that was extraordinary. The Republicans with their counter proposals this week, what's behind closed doors? How do you read all of this?
Well, look, please, I mean, you know as well as I do, Maria, that what happens in the public when you have these intense negotiations going on is really, it is no reflection of what's going on in the negotiations at all. I think it's important, the President and the White House and Tim Geithner and others obviously think it's important to keep out the possibility of going over the fiscal cliff to put maximum pressure on the Republicans. And the Republicans are starting to talk about the possibility of holding up the debt ceiling come January or February, and that's their trump card as well.
Well, it's interesting that you say this because once again, you're focused on taxes. Much of the conversation has been on taxes and raising rates, raising revenue. We're not seeing any of the same really elaborate conversation when it comes to sizable spending cuts.
Yeah, I think, Maria, what the president has said, and this is actually what the word is inside the White House as well. The president has come up with some very substantial cuts in the increase, the scheduled increases in Medicare. And also Medicaid, and those cuts have to do with pushing and squeezing suppliers, using the bargaining leverage of Medicare and Medicaid to get suppliers and providers to reduce their costs. And that was an issue during the campaign. Remember, Romney and Ryan were claiming that the president was taking too much out of Medicare. Well, the president's now saying, look, I have done that, and I'm even putting more. I'm putting $400 billion of additional cuts on the table, and that's all I'm going to do. That's all I can possibly do politically. I've got a lot of Democrats who say, I don't want Medicare touched. I don't want Social Security touched.
You know, and then of course, you know, the whole irresponsible actions of both sides going on vacation. You know, there have been suggestions, notably by Warren Buffett, that Congress should not get paid and they should not have health insurance until they actually come to an agreement.
I think there is a lot of negotiating behind the scenes, Maria. The staffs are meeting almost constantly. But you raise a good point and an interesting point. The optics, as Washington likes to call it, of going on vacation when you have a fiscal cliff looming, if you don't have an agreement, are simply awful. Boehner has already told the Republicans that nobody is going on vacation until this thing is settled. I think that the Democrats are probably going to say, Pelosi and Reid are probably going to say the same thing to the Democrats. So I wouldn't be surprised if Congress stayed in session maybe all the way to the 21st of December. This is going to be, not to put too fine a point on it, a cliffhanger with regard to the fiscal cliff. I think there will be some movement. In other words, they will not go on vacation unless there is some agreement about what a framework is going to be, or some way that they are going to avoid basically seeing tax rates go up on January 1st and major spending cuts go into effect. There will be some delay if they don't reach some tentative agreement by, say, December 21st when they head home.
I would hope so, because I think America is really going to be upset. At this point in time, we all recognize what the implications of going over that cliff are. Robert, good to have you on the program.
If I can just say, Maria, I think capital markets are going to be upset. That's going to upset the rest of America. But most consumers, most people on the street, really, you know, they say fiscal cliff, fiscal schmiff. I mean, I don't know what that is.
Yes, you're right. You've got the business community sitting on their cash, Wall Street waiting on every word, and consumers spending as if nothing. But you know, it comes home to roost, Robert Reich. All right, good to have you on the program. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Up next on the Wall Street Journal Report, Drive Time. Our American cars zooming along. A look at some of the best news for the auto sector in years, what it means for your set of wheels. And later, Living with Lions. Theater director Julie Taymor with me on one of Broadway's biggest payoffs as it marks a milestone. As we take a break, take a look at how the stock market ended the week. Back in a moment. Welcome back. America's auto industry is in high gear. In spite of economic uncertainty, it is on pace to sell more than 15 million new cars this year. Mike Jackson is the chairman and CEO of AutoNation, the nation's largest auto retailer. Mike, good to have you on the program. Welcome back. I was really surprised at what's going on with auto sales. 5-year high for auto sales with so much uncertainty about the economy, this fiscal cliff. What's behind this strength?
Yeah, in an otherwise anemic, weak economic recovery with a lot of pain out there in America, the automotive recovery is absolutely a bright spot. Industry sales collapsed in 08 and 09 from a sustainable selling rate of 16, 17 million down to a low of 10. And there was simply no financing available for our customers for a couple years. And so that pushed out the average age of the cars on the road in America to an unprecedented 11 years. And American consumers basically stopped fixing the cars during that period of time. So now they need to do something. It's
this replacement cycle. It was time to get a new car. I mean, I'm just wondering if this strength in auto sales last month is partly a move toward taking from the future. In other words, is the Hurricane Sandy related at all? Did the hurricane pull up auto sales from next year into this year?
No, the replacement need is a bow wave that is millions of units that are backed up, that is going to last for this next several years. Now, the industry in November had a selling rate of 15,500,000. I think the full year will average right around the mid-14s, so there was some Hurricane Sandy. But I'll tell you, in our sales, and we're a Sun Belt company without any Sandy effect, sequentially our sales improved 8% over October, and we were up 21% in the month of November, and that had nothing to do with Hurricane Sandy.
Is the fiscal cliff affecting your business, Mike? Are you seeing consumers hesitant about buying? We were just talking about the fact that consumers are pretty optimistic while business is sort of sitting on cash, anticipating the results of this fiscal cliff. What is it doing to your business?
Maria, it's amazing and a head scratcher, and maybe I just worry too much, but the American consumer believes or has faith, confidence, whatever you call it, that there is going to be some sort of resolution around the fiscal cliff, and that Washington, D.C. is not so recklessly irresponsible to throw this economy back into recession. So they are behaving as if the fiscal cliff is going to be resolved. So auto sales have met the challenges of the debt crisis, of high gas prices, and now the fiscal cliff with the American consumer on a durable good saying, you know, we think at the end of the day they're going to do the right thing and this is going to get resolved.
So what are you seeing out there? You sell all kinds of cars. What are the hottest brands right now? Whether it's, you know, luxury to economy brands, what are you selling most and what's hot?
I think the most important development in the marketplace is the embracing of fuel economy by the American consumer in an unprecedented way. Now, what's interesting is it's not hybrids and electrics that they're embracing. Here's the basic equation. We're saying to them, listen, you can have the same size vehicle with the same speed, but a 25 to 30% improvement in fuel efficiency with traditional technologies that you get your money back in 2 to 3 years. That's a winning proposition to the American consumer.
Let me ask you about something else. Most auto companies market to men, and yet women are making the lion's share of financial decisions. How come the auto sector isn't marketing to women? Is your industry behind the times?
Our industry is behind the times in some ways, Maria, and our data shows that 60% the women are deciding what finally happens. Regardless, now they're brilliant and let the man think that they've decided, but at the end of the day, it's the woman who has decided. But I'll tell you what's changed is that in this digital world of today, women or men can do their research and their negotiating from their iPad, mobile phone, or home computer. And women are very comfortable in that environment and really like the fact that they are now in control of the negotiation rather than the old scheme where they have to come into the dealership and jump through all these hoops. So I'm very optimistic that a transformation is underway in automotive retail that is much more customer friendly.
Mike, good to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Maria, always a pleasure.
I'll see you soon. Mike Jackson joining us, Auto Nation. Up next on the Wall Street Journal Report, the woman behind the Kings, Tony-winning Lion King director Julie Taymor on her $6 billion Broadway baby.
You've seen it how many times? Five times. I've seen it hundreds.
Welcome back. The musical The Lion King marked 15 years on Broadway last month. The story of a lion cub raised by a warthog and a meerkat before ascending to his father's jungle throne was a screen hit for Disney. And since opening in New York in November 1997, it has become the highest-grossing Broadway musical in history. Director Julie Taymor, behind the film Frida, as well as the Broadway adaptation of Spider-Man, told me how she turned a two-dimensional film into a live experience that has been playing the world over. You were the first woman to win the Tony for The Lion King, the highest-grossing musical in Broadway history, bringing in $6 billion. Did you envision such success?
No.
Talk to us about what you were expecting. I mean, bringing a cartoon to Broadway.
Well, I don't know if I had any expectations. about the commercial success. The producers wanted what I had done in the theater. I've been in theater all my life. There is a clash, a bit of a tension between giving the audience what they think they want, especially in a big, known piece like The Lion King, and giving them something that they didn't know that they wanted. That's where I love to live. It's the circle of life. But there were other people involved at the time in Disney who weren't theater people, and they didn't think that the masks and puppets could work. So we did some workshops, we did some tests. Michael Eisner said, you know what, they all work, every version works, but your first idea, let's go with it. The bigger the risk, it's risky, but the bigger the risk, the bigger the payoff. They have to feel that risk is necessary to create something that's going to be groundbreaking.
And I know that just resonating and touching someone emotionally has to make you feel unbelievable. But the pure profit numbers, I mean, is this something that you're proud of? $6 billion in profits, the Lion King in the 16th year on Broadway, selling tickets around the world. This has to make you also so
I know,
proud.
I'm proud, and we're #1. I think that because it's a show which is also, there are not that many, but because it's a show that's good for families, people come back. You've seen it how many times?
5.
5 times. I've seen it hundreds.
What about the global story? So The Lion King right now playing globally. Do you have to change things depending on the audience, different cultures, different countries?
Well, it's been fun with Lion King, really fun, because, for instance, in Madrid last September, we opened the first Spanish-speaking Lion King in Madrid, and you get to a point where Timon and Pumbaa are supposed to do the Charleston. They'll do a flamenco dance. And the whole audience is going, ole, ole! And it was
terrific.
So spectacular. So as soon as you do that, you make it part of that culture. I think the most exciting story about this was in South Africa, in Johannesburg. We were casting Timon and Pumbaa, and for the first time we cast an Afrikaners Pumbaa and a black Timon. So you had what would be traditionally and historically 2 characters who would never integrate with each other because of apartheid. We actually did something very politically moving, socially and politically moving, and the audience felt it. It happened just by sheer casting, and then the accents and all of the different, you know, it was very, very thrilling, and they'd mock each other and play with each other, and there were many, many things like that, where political and social things have happened in the experience of The Lion King going into a different country.
Does commercial success, or the potential of commercial success, dictate how the show is put together, what goes into the show?
Everybody who is a producer is going to think about the weekly running costs and the potential of how much money and the size of the theater it can make. When I did Lion King, I had no idea what it cost. No one ever talked to me about money. I found out last year what it cost, and it was much more than I thought, but it's made upward of $6 billion, so no one ever really complained about it.
Terrific. How tough is it creatively to introduce new technology to an industry that typically doesn't really have that kind of technology that we see elsewhere in the digital world?
Lion King is low tech, and it was intentionally so. You know, you see the rods and the strings, and that was a concept that I wanted very much for The Lion King. I wanted people to see old-style theater techniques, puppetry, mask work. As a person who works in theater, and I studied shamanism, I lived in Asia for 4 years, I've seen theater in its original form. Theater was there to bridge the gap between the inexplicable in life. Look how Disney's always dealt with death. They don't shy away. They don't go, oh my God, Mufasa's dying, we can't put that on Broadway. They say, there is a story, there is a lesson. All fairy tales, all myths have helped us get through those times, and that's how you tell your children about how do you survive a death in the family, or how you get through a drought, or how you get through an illness.
The circle of life.
The circle of life, and those lessons are very important, and why people bring their kids to the theater. They have a great time, but if they can bring something home that has made their lives fuller, richer, and more complete, then I have done my job.
My thanks to Julie Tamar. Up next on the Wall Street Journal Report, we'll take a look at the news this upcoming week that will have an impact on your money. And then when buzz is bad for you, the most overused resume buzzwords that may be keeping you from the job of your dreams. Stay with us. We have some big news to tell you about. Beginning in January, we will have a new name. Look for On the Money with Maria Bartiromo. We'll have some exciting new segments for you with great guests. And of course, I'll be here as well. Hope you'll join us. Now, a look at the stories coming up in the week ahead that may move the markets and impact your money this week. On Tuesday, we'll find out if the U.S. is importing or exporting more goods. That's when the balance of trade will be released. On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve will wrap up its last meeting for 2012 with another press conference from Chairman Ben Bernanke. Speaking of the chairman, Wednesday is Mr. Bernanke's birthday. Happy 59th, Mr. Chairman. November's retail sales report will also be out on Wednesday, as is the first of two inflation indicators, the Producer Price Index, which tracks prices at the wholesale level, and then that will be followed up on Friday with the Consumer Price Index, which follows. Finally, if you are on this list, it doesn't set you apart. Professional networking site LinkedIn released 2012's most overused buzzwords on user profiles. These descriptors are being used so often, they actually lose significance with hiring managers. Analyzing 187 million profiles around the globe, LinkedIn found that creative is the top offender in the United States, as well as 7 other countries. Rounding out the rest of the top 5 also ran here at home: organizational, effective, motivated, and extensive experience. Using buzzwords in an effort to land your dream gig can be a buzzkill. Just FYI. That'll do it for us for today. Thank you so much for joining us. My guest next week, Grover Norquist, author of The Pledge Against Raising Taxes, signed by many Republicans. We'll get an update on where we stand on that fiscal cliff negotiation. Each week, keep it right here where Wall Street meets Main Street. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you again next weekend.